Hello everyone. In today's video, I'm going to talk about infinite loop. Now, the first question should arise in your mind is, what is actually an infinite loop? Don't worry about it. I'm going to simply go into that topic right now. Now, if we search through the internet for a decent definition, we get a lot of definition, but among all of those, I actually like this definition from the Wikipedia. But although it might seem difficult to grasp on, but don't worry, whenever we will go into the code section, we might understand how this actually works. So according to Wikipedia, in computer programming, an infinite loop is a sequence of instructions that, as written, will continue endlessly unless an external intervention occurs. All right. And this infinite loop, it may be intentional. Actually, in many cases we code it like this intentionally, but in some other cases it might seem like that we don't actually want to occur an infinite loop, but it occurs anyway. So in this video I'm going to talk you about how actually that works. Now for this video I'm going to use C programming language, but if you can understand the concept, again you can use the exact same concept in any other programming language like C++, Java, Rust, and in any other language you want, including Python, of course. All right, so let me simply get into the code. All right, so first of all, let me declare my header file, and this is my main function. All right, so let's say first of all I'm gonna ask the user to enter a value. All right, and after user enters the value, I'm gonna need a variable to store that value. Right, so let's say integer var is my that variable, and now I need to scan the value from the user, and I also need to store that value into that variable I just created right now. Otherwise I won't have any other way to store that value, right? And then let's say I'm telling you that print numbers starting from 1 till it reaches var. All right, in that case we might use for loop, we might use for while loop, I mean sorry, do while loop. We can also use while loop. All right, if I simply say you that, you might use and for loop. Integer I starts from 1 because I have told you that the counting should start from 1 and it should go on until it reaches var. So it would be I less equal var like this, I plus plus, and here you can simply print the value of I like this. Now if I simply run this code, what will happen? It would ask a value from the user, and whenever I enter the value, it would simply print starting from 1 till it reaches the value I just entered. Right, let me simply run this code. All right, it's asking for a value. Let me simply provide 50, and if I press the enter key, you see that it's printing from 1 to 50. All right, but let's say I don't want anything like this. I want it to print starting from number 1 to infinite amount of numbers, or you can say starting from 1 to infinity. Actually it can't be possible using any condition like this, because if I ask you about the infinity, you might answer me that how can you exactly identify the infinite value? Because whenever we call something infinite, or we can think about infinity, we specify this type of scenario where we can't exactly grasp the end value, right? Because if I simply tell you about to provide me the last value of 1000, you can say 1000, 2000, or so on. But if I simply want you to specify me a value that would actually represent infinite, how can you do that? You can't do that using any digits like this, because if you can simplify infinite number in digit, then we can't call that infinite, right? We have to call it finite, of course. If I simply talk you about the math term, you may show me this is the infinite symbol, but you can't apply this symbol in this coding language because we don't have that symbol. All right, so we need to think about different scenario on how we can do that without using this type of symbol or something like that. All right. So I want you to think about the structure of for loop. For the structure of for loop, first of all, we need to specify the initialization. Then we need to specify the condition, how long it will run, and then we need to specify the increment or decrement, in which aspect it would increase the value or decrease the value. All right. So whenever we want to print starting from 1 to infinite or infinity, we don't actually know the condition when it will stop, because if it really stops, then we can't reach infinity, right? If we want to reach infinity, we can't stop, we have to print endlessly. We know that. You might say that is not possible. Yeah, in some sense that is actually not possible, but theoretically, of course, that is possible. How is that possible? Let me show you right now. Here we have specified that it has to print till it reaches the variable value. All right. So if I simply remove this condition, then it becomes a infinite condition, right? Let me specify you more. So this is the for loop. All right. And here the starting of I is 1. This is our initialization part. Cool. All right. Then we need to think about the condition, but as there is no condition for this for loop, it would take that as a yes. I mean, if there is not any condition, that it would take it as for granted. It would think that every condition is true, so it will run until it reaches any breakpoint. And how can that be? Well, during running infinite loop, during running an infinite loop, if your computer's RAMs get reduced to almost 0, or if your operating system crashed during that process, only then the code will stop. Otherwise, the code will run endlessly. Let me show you. For that reason, I am not specifying any significant condition, and that's why it has turned into an infinite loop. Now, if I simply run this code, it's getting... let me run it manually. Enter a value, let's say 20, and if I simply press the enter key, it would not stop. You can see that it is running endlessly, and it would run endlessly until my RAM gets finished or my operating system gets crashed. Otherwise, it would run endlessly. If I want to stop it, otherwise I have to do it by force. In the terminal, I can use Ctrl-Z or Ctrl-C to stop it, or in this VS Code, I can simply kill the terminal from here. Otherwise, it would go on forever like this. All right. So this is how an infinite loop works. And moreover, as this is an infinite loop, I don't need to take any value because I am simply running endlessly. And it would simply go on forever like this again, because this is an infinite loop. All right. Now, another important thing is we can do it like this also for, and I'm not specifying any starting value, any ending value, or anything like this. This is also a structure of infinite loop. How? In this for loop, I'm not declaring any initialization, so it doesn't need any initial value specifically like earlier. And as I haven't mentioned any condition, that means it doesn't have any condition, so it would run endlessly in an infinite loop. And I have not declared any increment or decrement, so it won't need that either. So if I simply want, let's say I am specifying, or you can say I am initializing the value of I, let's say 5. I can do that here as well, whatever. And let's say if I want to simply print this value, and I am entering this code in this infinite for loop, what would happen exactly? The initial value is 5, it gets here, but this doesn't get any condition, so it would run endlessly. It won't stop. And as there is no increment or decrement, then the value of I won't be changed. As the earlier value of I was 5, all of the values of I would be 5, and it would also run endlessly because it is in a infinite, right? Now, if I simply run this code, you see 5 is getting printed endlessly. It won't stop until you stop it, or your computer's RAMs get finished, or your operating system crashes. All right, so let me simply kill this terminal here, and this is how it goes. Now the next question arises is, how can we stop an infinite loop inside our code? Well, I can do that in many ways. Let me simply revert back to the previous code, which was this. All right, now let's say I want to print starting from 1 to 50, but I want it to do it using the infinite loop. So how can I do that? I can use return 0 or break statement. All right, so the initial value of I was 1, and this doesn't have any conditions, so it would run endlessly in an infinite loop. And as I'm incrementing the value, so in each iteration the value of I would get increased by 1, and it would simply print that. So if I simply add a condition like this, if I becomes 50, then return 0, then it would stop at 50. Let me simply run this again. You see, it starts from 1 and it gets printed till it reaches 49, and whenever I becomes 50, it gets return 0, then it simply stops the code. Now if I simply specify if I equal 51, what would happen? It would print I starting from 1 to 50, and whenever I would get iterated after 50 and it would become 51, it would simply close the program. All right, now if I simply run this code, however, let me simply do it like this. You see, it prints starting from 1 till it reaches 50, and whenever after 50 it gets incremented by 1, 50 becomes 51, it checks whether the value of I is 51. Yes, that is, then it simply returns 0. That means it closes the program. Now if you want, you can simply break this loop using a break statement. If I use a break statement, then what happens is, whenever the value of I becomes 51, it would simply break this for loop. And after this for loop, if we simply write any statement, it would get executed after that. The for loops, let me simply write this like this: the infinite for loop ends here, like this. Then if I simply run this code, what would happen? The initial value of I is 1 and there is no condition, so this is definitely infinite. All right, and it would simply first of all, it would check whether I becomes 51 or not. If not, then it would not break. It would simply print the value, and then it would increment the value likewise. And whenever the value of I becomes 51, this condition would become true, so this statement would get executed. So it would simply break this infinite for loop, and then it would simply print the infinite for loop ends here, and the program gets closed successfully like this. So that's the concept. Right, now don't worry about the code because I'm gonna provide that anyway, and also don't worry about these slides because I'm gonna provide this slide in this video's description anyway. So if you want to follow me, you can do that in GitHub, GitLab, LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. My Facebook page, I will provide all of the link in this video's description box, and make sure to subscribe to this channel. And if you like this video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up, share it with your friends, and I will see you in another video. So till then, thank you.